Namaste and welcome to today's edition of Self-Improvement. Let us talk today about one more character building trait, and that is discipline. In the previous week, I told you that character building is very important for discipline, for self-improvement. And discipline is one of the traits for character building. I also quoted to you Swamiji saying that character building is a part of education, that is real education. So if you want to have self-improvement, now why do we need self-improvement? Because if all of us improve ourselves, obviously society will be a better place because it will consist of people who are all self-improved. They have improved themselves. And therefore, we will not only help ourselves, but we will help others. We will help the entire society if we do this. Let us keep in mind that when we talk about self-improvement, especially at a time like this, when the pandemic is raging all over the world, we have to take some examples which are learning experiences from something as dreaded as the pandemic. So if we talk about self-discipline, the pandemic gives us wonderful examples of this. It is because of the lack of discipline that the pandemic became so dreaded. It became so critical. That is because no person was following the pandemic protocol. What does it require to follow the protocol? It requires self-discipline. So imagine if all of us had practiced proper discipline, and if all of us had self-improvement tools with us, then the pandemic would have not had any impact. Today, slowly again, everything is opening. And again, people are misbehaving. They are breaking the protocol. They are breaking the code. So what is discipline? Discipline is the ability to follow a code, a group of rules and regulations. If we can follow them because they are beneficial, that is called discipline. Many of us might have noticed that discipline is something which is taught. That is why I said that, character building is a part of education. Education is something which we learn. So when we are talking about discipline, I can give you some examples from real life. When a child is born, the child does not have toilet training. That is a discipline which is taught to the child slowly. Within a little time, the child learns how to control, how to regulate, so that the code of conduct, the training is clearly followed. The child doesn't understand, the child doesn't know, but discipline becomes a habit. Similarly, a newborn child wants to eat all the time, but slowly eating discipline is taught. Then what do? We only eat a few times at the gap of 6 to 8 hours and, or 4 or 5 hours like that. So we find that there is the need for discipline. Then we want to have discipline when we are learning anything. You remember how much discipline is needed for us to learn the alphabet. When we are learning the alphabet, the teacher holds the hand and makes the little child write down. And that is how today we can write anything we want. We can type anything we want. But when you started typing on the keyboard for the first time, it required so much attention. It required so much discipline. So discipline becomes very important. The use of language, the use of words, for instance, requires a lot of discipline. what to say, when not to say. And of course, then since we are talking about the self-improvement idea, we have to remember that mental discipline is most important. Overindulgence in anything shows that we have no mental discipline. If you love playing and you go on playing, that is overindulgence. That is doing it too much. We can't do like that. If you love watching television, or if you love your cell phone, if you love food, or if you love travel, you can't overindulge. You can't do it too much because we have to keep a balance. And this balance tells us that this is the right code, this is the right rule. Let us follow this rule. If we go beyond the boundary of this rule, then we are breaking discipline. This we have to keep in mind. Let me give you a few examples, just one or two examples of discipline. Many people argue, saying that what is the Ramayana and Mahabharata? Are they just stories? Is it real or unreal? I feel all that argument, all that discussion does not really help us in self-improvement. If you look at it, real or only a story or whatever it is, it has wonderful models for self-improvement. For discipline, let me give you the example of Rama's younger brother, Bharat. Bharat was by choice an ascetic. His mother wanted him to be the king. He could have been a king. He could have enjoyed himself. He could have lived a very affluent and leisurely life, a life of great power and plenty. But he did not do that. He brought the footwear of his elder brother. He put it on his head first, then he put it on the throne. And for 14 years, like his two brothers, he spent the life of a hermit. Sri Rama did it because his father had ordered him. So that was discipline from external discipline being enforced on him. The father did not enforce this on Bharat. How did he do it? He did it because it was self-discipline. It's a wonderful example of discipline, depriving yourself of the unexpected or, the unearned gains. He was not the eldest son. So kingship was not his gain. It was unearned because the mother rested it for him. So he did not accept. He said, this is wrong. So I need to discipline myself in order to atone for what I have done. One of the meanings of discipline is also punishment. If you hear in school and college, a disciplinary action has been taken, then what do you understand? You understand that somebody has been punished. So that is one, meaning, a synonym of discipline. Now we are talking about following the right codes of discipline. Sri Ramakrishna enforced discipline on everybody around him because he knew it is very easy to break the code, to not to follow. Every day, his niece, Lakshmi Didi, and Holy Mother, they used to be in the Nahabat room sleeping. They would get up early morning and they would meditate. Sometime he found that they were not getting up in the morning. So he disciplined them. He called them when they didn't wake up. He put some water under the door so that when the bed gets wet, you can't sleep anymore. You get up. So sometimes discipline is also very strict. Discipline is enforced from outside. But we are doing self-improvement. So I would be very happy if you take examples of self-improvement also. I will tell you the types of discipline when, Sri Ramakrishna's idea will come. He would tell his disciples, the young disciples, who, in young age, you feel very hungry and you want to eat more. So he would say, don't eat too much because for your sadhana, If you eat too much, then you cannot do it. So that is discipline. Suppose you love eating and you keep eating so much and you get fatter and fatter. Don't do that. Self-discipline. The body requires so much food. Let us give the body only that much which it requires, not more, not less. So this we have to remember. Unless we remember such things, we cannot really discipline ourselves. Then we have, discipline from our own lives. You find that to be a sports person, Olympics are coming, to be an Olympic participant, how much of self discipline you require from childhood. Maybe you have to start training when you are 4 or 5 years old. Look at classical dancers, Bharatanatyam or Kuchipudi or Kathak. They do it from when they can walk. The time they start walking, they also start learning how to dance. Great singers, they have to practice every day. Even the topmost, the most, proficient classical singer, you will find them till they are 80, 90 years old. They practice every day. What does it imply? It implies self-discipline. So we have to keep in mind that self-discipline is something which all of us need to practice. Unless we are very stern with our self-discipline, we are not going to succeed. As I told you, many times discipline is enforced from outside. So when we talk about the types of discipline are very important because we have to choose. One of the type is self-discipline, but all discipline is not self-discipline. Somebody usually teaches us discipline before we can become self-disciplined or before we can take the responsibility that, yes, I'm going to now, take the responsibility of becoming disciplined myself. This idea is very important for us here. Now, in the types of discipline, the first you have is the authoritarian discipline. Person in authority is enforcing discipline. Suppose the Prime Minister says that, total lockdown, or the Chief Minister says, total lockdown. Authority, that means they have the power to tell us this. In your office, the boss can tell you, today you have to finish this work. Without finishing, you cannot go home. Discipline, which is enforced with authority. Your behavior, your code of following a particular pattern is enforced by a person in power. In school, if they tell you that you have to come at 9 o'clock in the morning, if you come at 1 minute past 9, you will not be allowed into school. You come 5 to 9, 10 to 9 earlier, but not later than 9. Then what is it that is happening? Authoritarian. Because your principal, your headmaster, your headmistress, whoever it is in power. That power they are putting to enforce discipline in you. Now, this teaches us, a lifelong practice of authoritarian discipline. Your parents tell you, don't stay out late in the night. Don't go out early in the morning. Study, now it is time for study. Now go and play, you have studied a lot. Now go to college or go to school. Now you sit with your online classes. So what is it? The parents have that authority. They have that power. So they are enforcing discipline. By this enforcement over a little period of time, then people learn. What happened in the pandemic? They thought that by locking down, they will teach everybody discipline. So authoritarian, then it became permissive. This is the second kind of discipline. You do it very gently, very mildly by saying, okay, we kept you at home for a month or two. Now you go out and show your discipline. Now, here is a test case, the lesson is learned. Now you have to appear for the exam. Now, what most people do is then they fail in the exam. Who passes the exam? A person who believes in self-improvement, a person who learns from the authoritarian discipline to bringing it into a discipline which is self-discipline. So the lenient discipline, the second type of discipline is where people tell you softly and gently. They don't enforce, they don't put their authority in it. Very often, you go to a park, you go to a place, it is written there, please do not walk on the grass. Please do not pluck flowers. Now you look here and there. You see, oh, anybody is looking at me? No. Quick, walk on the grass. What did you do? It was a permissive disciplinary code that, please don't do this. But you had no self-discipline, so you loved to violate that self-discipline. This is happening all the time. In schools and colleges, very often people are breaking the rules. As long as the invigilator is in the exam hall, the students are seriously writing the exam. They're not looking here or there. But the moment the invigilator has turned away from 1 minute, many students start cheating. Many students start speaking to each other. Now, what happened to them? As long as authoritarian discipline is there, they are willing to follow. When it becomes permissive discipline, they don't like it. They don't like to follow. This idea of authoritarian is called policing. The green light is there, you are supposed to go. Red light is there, you're supposed to stop. But no policeman is around. So if I see the red light, I go across. What happened? I violated the traffic discipline because I don't have self-discipline. I need somebody to force me to have discipline. So now they have put cameras. So even if no police person is there, the camera will take your photograph and you will get a fine. The chitti will come home. Please pay the fine. So what we require is to make society better, to make everybody take their own responsibility. We require self-discipline. So permissible discipline is very soft, it is very lenient. Many people don't follow it. Small children, when they misbehave, some parents are very lenient. They say, oh, small child, please allow the child to behave. Don't correct the child at all. Such a child grows up to be extremely indisciplined because no discipline was ever taught to this child. And therefore, the child never learned from this and how to learn self-discipline unless you have been taught discipline. In fact, it is very sad for us to note that our country, the people in our country, most people that is, seem to be extremely indisciplined. You find Indians going and settling all over the world. They are so disciplined because they have gone to that country and they have learned it. I remember an experience, traveling from Chicago to New Delhi. In Chicago, the same people who were behaving so properly, when they came to Delhi, they started pushing each other. They started going to the immigration by breaking the queue and so on. Remember, the same person, because they require authoritarian discipline. They don't have self-discipline. They are not behaving properly because they are disciplined. They are behaving properly because there is a strict law. When I went to Singapore, I found it was very clean. How is it clean? Because their punishment is huge, even if you throw such a small piece of paper on the roads. In India, you see, We have Swachh Bharat, Swachh Bharat, Swachh Bharat. Still, we find everywhere around there is littering. We don't have the discipline to know that this is right and that is wrong. So we require what is called as self-discipline. So this is the third type. Permissive discipline, Swachh Bharat, very permissive. Enforce a fine for breaking a traffic rule so much, for not wearing a mask so much. People cannot pay, so they will follow. This is authoritarian. And self-discipline is the best because we are learning self-improvement. And here I would insist on self-discipline. At every point, please note that it is your self-discipline which is most important. So what is it that we need to do when we are practicing self-discipline? Let us look at one by one. I'm only mentioning a few contexts because I can't mention everything. But please remember that these are important. Now, very significant is the discipline of time. Time discipline is something which all of us need to learn as soon as possible. Postponement is indiscipline of time. Today, I plan to do this job. Then I said, oh, today I'm not feeling in a mood. I'll do it tomorrow, which means my discipline has failed me. If I said I have to do the job today, I need to do it today. So we have to be very conscious of time discipline. We sit with our smartphones. These days, smartphones are a real distraction. They are very useful also, extremely useful, but also they take up a lot of time. Whenever a notification comes, we keep looking at it. So in all the waking hours, 15 to 18 hours, we are waking, we keep looking at our smartphone. What are we doing? We are wasting that much time. Can we make a timetable? By saying morning, I will look at the smartphone, all the notifications. Then unless something very urgent comes, I won't look at it for the next 5 hours. Then I'll check once more. Then again, I will wait for 6 hours and I'll check once more before going to bed. We don't do that. We keep, looking at the cell phone all the time. They are saying that after a time, your thumb will no longer be your thumb because you are constantly using it. I see youngsters, they are messaging with both hands. Cell phone came very late in our lives, so we don't know how to do it. But what are you doing? You are showing your indiscipline. Sitting in the temple, listening to bhajans, I saw people playing with their smartphones. The worst is when you get into a flight and the flight attendant very politely says, please switch off all your devices by the time the plane is taking off and when it is coming down. Nobody bothers. They are all educated people. I find everybody is still talking on their phone. Everybody is still fiddling with their phone. Nobody is doing it. What do they lack? They lack the discipline of time. Now is the time to switch off that phone. Now is the time to switch off that device. That much time discipline they don't have. This we have to learn. When we are learning self-discipline, we have to learn this. Now, speech discipline. Very often what we do is, if somebody is talking, we interrupt that person. I can give you a simple example of an interview for a job. I've found this many, many times. The interviewer starts to ask a question. You hear 5 or 6 words of the question. You say, oh, I know this answer. And what do? You interrupt the questioner and you start answering. Even if your answer is very good, your indiscipline of interrupting the speaker makes you lose that job. Your answer was good. Your behavior was wrong. If you are so indisciplined in an interview room, then the interviewer will think, how indisciplined you will be when you get that job. So obviously, they won't give you the job. This is discipline in speech. When you go to Ramakrishna Math Pune, say, you want to speak to Swamiji, speech discipline. You can't say, hey, you come here. You say, Pranam Swamiji, because Swamiji is not your friend, is not your, younger to you. Swamiji is a person to be respected. So what we require? We require discipline in speaking in order to know where to say what and so on. We did one part on speech and silence. You combine that part to this part, you will find how speaking discipline is very important. I gave you the example of Holy Mother Sharda Devi saying, that always the truth cannot be said because sometimes we avoid saying the unpleasant truth. So who has the discipline to control the tongue? Tongue is very difficult to control. Whether it is eating or it is speaking, the tongue needs to be controlled. And that is the discipline of the tongue. Similarly, discipline of our body. We find people sitting in a classroom and you keep flicking your phone or you keep moving your body. You keep tossing your legs or your hands. You keep, looking out of the window. So what do these students show? They show lack of physical discipline. That means they are not able to discipline their body when the mind is concentrating. Mental discipline, I told you, is very important. But behavioral discipline is equally important. All the gadgets which we have in our life are all gadgets which we are indisciplined in their use. People use their laptop, then they don't switch it off. They just walk around, they go around. They forget to switch it off. By the time you come to use it again, the battery has become zero. While driving a car, many people forget to switch off the lights when they have parked it. By next morning you go, the car will not start again. So these small things are gadget discipline. Today, since we are using so much technology, so many gadgets, we need discipline for using them. Then you have, I've already told you about mental discipline. Then you have what is called as task discipline. Doing a job, disciplined way. You find one person, just sweeping the road. One person is sweeping it so nicely. Such a simple job, It is the most important job in our life today because the roads are kept clean and swept. You and I can't do it. We must worship these people who are doing it for us. The greatest job they are doing. So two, three people do it in front of your house. You find one of them is doing an excellent job. The same room, the same time, the same road, the same effort and energy, but one person performs better, the other does not. The other just does like that and goes away. The other person puts the entire discipline of work. What is the code? They have had a training. So that training they apply. For any job you find, you have your own teachers. One of the teachers will do the same lesson in a manner which you would love. Another teacher doing that same lesson would do a half-hearted job. What happened? Discipline. Sometimes the teacher who goes in ahead of you teaches 10 minutes extra, comes and says, oh, I'm so sorry. What happened? Discipline. Here is time discipline, behavior discipline, task discipline. Everything is put together in that word sorry. Because by saying sorry, can you return my 10 minutes to me? Can you give me back those 10 minutes which you've taken away? After doing something terrible, if you apologize, you are not really helping at all. Then, of course, we have discipline when we interact with each other. In a part of relationships, I told you people skills or interpersonal skills. Here, discipline is most important. Somebody comes and knocks on the door. You open the door and say, "Oh, I don't have any time now. Please go away." That means relationship discipline. Very often, this happens to us because we are not aware of our relationships. We think that an important person comes, a VIP comes, we say, "Oh, please come, red carpet is here." Just a poor person, a person who needs some help from you comes. We get irritated. We say, "Oh, no, 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 I can't help you," and so on. Of course, very often, when help is something which you are not in a position to give. Suppose you have COVID and somebody comes and rings your bell, you are not going to open that door. You're not going to allow the guest to come inside because you are in isolation yourself. So there it is not a lack of discipline, but in ordinary circumstances, it is a lack of discipline. As I told you, I get many emails, I get many messages. People keep contacting me by the thousands and lakhs. Now, I am only a single person. I can't attend 100 phone calls in a day. I can't answer WhatsApp messages, which are, if I open in the morning, 95 messages are waiting. I can't answer them. I can't answer all the mails that come. So what do? I tell them politely. They get very angry, some of them. They say, "You don't help, you don't help, you don't help." But please remember that I'm not promising any help to the millions. I'm not able to help them. If I'm able to help a little, then I would discipline myself by, making myself strong. Energy levels I have to build up and try to help. Beyond that help, I cannot do anything. Many people want to learn English. That's a wonderful discipline. Learning a language is an excellent discipline. But I'm not capable of teaching 8 million, 10 million people. Then I give other people's numbers by saying contact them. But of course, many students in our country are poor. They cannot afford to pay and learn. Then what should they do? They should do self-learning. That is self-discipline. Learning by ourselves is a great self-discipline. So if we are capable of doing these things, at every point, if we analyze, like I told you in one of the parts, self-analysis, then we know where we are breaking the code of conduct, where we are becoming indisciplined, where we are not listening to others or to our own voice, where we are not following the rules and regulations. Once we know, once we diagnose what is wrong, we can easily become disciplined. Remember, there is no substitute for a person who has strong discipline. A person who has strong discipline is a person who is going to go forward, who is going to go towards success. An indisciplined person can never reach that height of excellence. So Swami Srikantanandaji is putting this on the Human Excellence YouTube channel. We all are striving towards that excellence. They are showing us the path. And if we can follow this path, then we reach the height of excellence. So in your self-improvement, please keep discipline as one of the practices. If you practice for some time, you will find that discipline becomes ingrained. That is why I said character building. Thank you and namaste.